What's up, guys? MC Stu here, and today we got another update, and this one is regarding fleets. All right, so on last night's 10 Forward, we heard about the Elite Bridge Officer tokens, and they also, on the last half of that, talked about some changes that are coming to fleets. And so we're going to go ahead and, again, watch a couple little bits of this here and discuss those and see what we have in store for our fleets. So let's go ahead and start off. I'm just going to kind of jump through it here. There's a bunch of little stuff, and again, this is somewhat early on, so we're not going to go into big-time detail here in the stream and everything they went through. We're just going to look at some of the highlights that really kind of caught my attention here as well. All right, let's take a look.
In fleets, but there are many fleets in the game that are now at maximum rank, and that is a pretty hefty road to get to, having maxed out your fleet and your holdings and whatnot. So as a big part of this update, we're also adding a whole swath of new rewards that are available from each of your 6 different holdings.
And he's not wrong. Building up a fleet is insane. The amount of resources and time involved is it's nuts. I have found out firsthand over the last few months, and it is a lot of work. So I'm really happy to hear this.
All of these require you to have a T3 holding. In some cases, of one of the sub elements. In other cases, the entire holding. But these are all designed with the notion of we want to give you some rewards that have some serious motive.
Let me pause it there, guys. Sorry, I had to clip out a bit there. I had to watch 3 commercials here in watching the VOD of this live stream. I think it's kind of ridiculous that the game manufacturer has ads monetized on their channel. It's kind of ridiculous. Anyways, let's keep going.
Mojo behind them, because it's a lot of work for your fleet to get all the way up to a tier 3 holding or a T5 starbase and so on. And so every holding is now going to have a new set of additional rewards that you can purchase for the regular currencies of dilithium and fleet marks from the various stores.
Awesome. Okay, so they're going to add a bunch of stuff in that we can now purchase. So I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead a little bit here, and they just kind of detail out a couple of the things that are going to be added. And then they, based on a question that they had got towards the end here, I think that's really the gem in this whole thing if this actually ends up coming out the way that that they describe and answer this question. Let's jump ahead here and take a look at a few of the things that they're adding.
A suite of new ultra rare duty officers and a suite of Admiralty ships that you can purchase for each holding. And I believe we have a couple of those to show off.
We do.
Always.
I have pulled up the first picture, which is the Krenim that you sent me here.
Everything is subject to change, but
so we got an ultra R&D BOF here.
We're starting with this is a Krenim Research Lab DOF that you can purchase if you have got the Krenim Research Lab at Tier 3. And you will note something suspicious about this duty officer. It has 3 R&D schools.
So there's nothing currently like that in game. You have DOFs that have R&D schools, but they're specific to one in particular. So they've designed new things that did not previously exist in game, which is awesome. I think this is nice. So you can maybe trim down your duty officer roster a little bit if you want to. Being ultra rare like that will give you a better chance at getting higher quality crafted items. So that's nice. They show off one other one, and basically what they've said is that each holding will have 3 to 4 new duty officers that are the ultra rare, and then each holding will have a Admiralty card that you can purchase. Let's jump a little bit farther ahead here and see where that part was at. They talk about this other DOF here for a little while. Security officer DOF, 20% chance, beam down additional 2 level. We have something similar to this. I don't know how this is better. 20% is higher. Again, and they just show us 2 of them. And apparently there's going to be 3 to 4 different ones per holding. So that's a good amount of new duty officers. So that's kind of cool. I'm interested to see the full list and stats on what all they're going to add into it. So let's jump ahead here to the Admiralty.
All right.
This is just an example of one of them.
Ultra rare Admiralty ship cards that you can purchase, and this is from the Romulan Embassy. So this is a named Romulan support escort. As you can see, it's a science vessel that has a very balanced set of ability scores, stats there. So you can send it on any mid-tier mission, or it can support well with anything else. But it has an unusual special ability, which is that it gets a reduced maintenance cost by going with small craft. Because normally you put small craft on a mission and they reduce maintenance cost for other things that aren't small craft. Well, this is the opposite. This is a support escort. It's
Does that make sense to you guys? So this does what a small craft does, but you have to have it with a small craft. So what's the point? That doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, this is a pretty decent Admiralty card. This is something similar to what you would get with, a C-store ship or something like that. In terms of the quality and the tier, it is pretty well balanced. Normally what you'll have is really high tactical and the other two low, or really high of one of the others. So having something that's somewhat balanced like this is kind of nice, good filler, especially when you get up to harder ones where you can put it in as kind of the base and then build up tactical or one of the other ones, other two cards with that if you're running Admiralty. So again, they'll have a one for each of the holdings. So we'll have to take a look and see what the specs are on the rest of them. But again, this is a way to be able to accumulate decent Admiralty cards without having to spend real world money. Because normally these are only going to come from ships that, they come from any ship, but the good ones are going to come from tier 6 ships, which generally you have to purchase, or they're going to be an event ship. Tier 5 ships and all the other ones do include that. So you still get them, but their specs are much lower than what you would have on a tier 6. So that's kind of nice, adding that stuff in. Again, some of this stuff we might find isn't super useful. Some of it might be. Regardless, I think it's excellent that they're expanding this. I mean, these are things that we've been talking about for a while, wanting to see them, adding stuff into the game, not just purchasable ships. Like to see them add a little bit more content would be nice as well. Hopefully that's coming down the road, but adding this stuff in, that makes me happy, regardless of whether or not I use it or not. Let's jump ahead here again and look at one of the big ones for me, and I'll talk about why here after. So let's hear what they say.
Previously, Romulan superior officers were only tactical. The Kentari we showed earlier was a tactical officer. Are there ones for each career, or is it they still specifically for one type of career for each type of BOF?
You should, shipbuilders rejoice. You should be able to get SROs for each career now.
My God.
All right, let me give you some background on that. So if you're building and a ship and you're wanting to build for damage, whether you're doing meta, high end, low end, mid tier, just having fun, you want to build up your crit chance, whatever it is, superior Romulan operatives are the best duty officers, or bridge officers to have, because they have a trait that gives you critical chance and critical severity. Now, if you're a Romulan character, a Romulan faction, whether or not you're aligned with FED or KDF, you can buy those from the exchange. You get them just assigned to you when you're going through the story missions. And so it's very easy and inexpensive to have an entire bridge crew of superior Romulan operatives, which adds up to just a ton of critical chance and critical severity just by having them slotted. And so why this is important is because if you're any other faction, you can only obtain tactical officers that have that trait on it, and they come from the fleet holding the, and it's just slipping my mind, Jesus, I can see what it looks like, the embassy. So the Romulan embassy fleet holding is where you would get those. And so on most of your ships, you're not going to have more than 2 tactical seats most of the time, which means you could only, if you are not a Romulan character or Romulan faction where you started from, you cannot have more than 2 of those. Even if you did have a ship that had 3 slots, you're going to probably be wasting some of those seats because it's just more tactical abilities than you need. So up until this statement that they've made, if you are someone that's chasing high end or whatever it may be, you're at a disadvantage compared to if you had chosen to be a Romulan, essentially, or Romulan alien or whatever, but from the Romulan faction. So what he has said is that they are going to be updating the selections of duty officers that you can get. They're going to be adding some ultra rare duty officers, and they're going to be adding purchasable Romulan operatives in all the different disciplines, meaning now I can not just have the choice to buy a tactical officer, but I could buy 2 tactical officers, an engineer, and 2 science, and all of them be SROs, superior Romulan operatives, with that trait that has that extra crit chance and crit severity, and they all stack on top of each other. So I mean, it adds up to a ton. Now, to be fair, that's still going to be much more expensive than if you are a Romulan character, because you can just go to the exchange and buy them. In some cases for 500,000 EC or a million or two. They're relatively cheap and easy to get. These bridge officers, I think they cost like 18,000 dilithium and some fleet marks, if memory serves me right, something like that. But they're certainly going to be more expensive in terms of the resources, that you would grind out in game for them. But even with that being said, they're certainly not the most expensive things that you can get, like extra trait slots and things like that. I'm really pumped if they're going to go that way. I'm someone that, I run with groups that do some of the high-end runs and stuff, and I've always felt like I'm at a disadvantage, and I am, because I have a human-fed, tactical officer is my main captain, and I can only have 2 SROs, so I could have the exact same build and everything as somebody else, but if they're a Romulan, they are going to have a ton extra. I mean, we're talking 15% critical chance and, 6 critical severity, depending on the overall layout, and there's nothing you can do to make up for that until now. So now you will be able to purchase those through the fleet holding. Again, this is early on. Hopefully they don't make a change to that. Hopefully it is exactly what he says. Bordicus knows exactly what the question is and what people are asking. So I think that it's safe to say that is the what they're going to do now. Hopefully they just don't change their mind on it. So I'm pretty pumped about that. A couple of the other things they had mentioned, just to make sure we cover all of it, is they said they were going to do some polishing on things. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Maybe they're going to work with some of the textures and some of the different fleet holdings. They said they're going to do some quality of life stuff, like the transwarp to Bajor is actually going to now work and take you to Bajor. If you've ever been on the KDF starbase, it's like a nightmare to stand in the exact right place in order to talk to the transport officer to get out of there. And they said that that's something that they have addressed as well. So that's awesome. So there it is, guys. There was quite a bit of information in last night's 10 Forward stream, and I'm super happy with it. Whether I like some of the changes or don't like some of the changes, I'm just very happy to see that they're expanding some of these systems, fixing some of the systems, and adding new things into the game like this. I think that's super helpful. A lot of you guys that have been working in fleets for a long time that have a max level, you guys put in tons and tons and tons of work, but you get to a place over time where you have everything you need from it, and now it's just kind of sitting there and there's nothing really to do. So I hope they continue down this path. And they did state that while this wasn't specifically about helping with some of the DIL exchange stuff, it may have that effect. And if we see a positive effect and we see that, that they see that people are, utilizing this stuff, they said that they would continue to add things in like that. And I think that's a great idea. And I think stuff like that could really help, the dilithium exchange long term. So let me know what you guys think. Will it help the exchange? Are you excited about these changes? It doesn't look like they're taking anything away. So I can't really see anybody being, anything's possible, right? But I can't really see anybody being like ticked off about this, because they're not taking anything. They're just adding stuff into it. So let me know what you guys think down in the description. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you very much for watching all the way to the end. I appreciate you. Until next time, guys, have a good one. Stay safe. Hey guys, appreciate you watching. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, ring the bell, and sub to the channel for the latest news updates and how-to guides.